mentally, and she was fun then. I be geeked when she come around.
I wrote I Used to Love Her.
Right.
And I used to love her about the evolution of hip-hop, and I used a woman to describe, hip-hop.
One of the most creative records of all time.
Thing I know, we go to bed, he like, oh, come on, Jack. No, I'm tired. I was on the stage all night. I want to lay down. I'm going to lay down in the bed. I lay down with my clothes on. You know what I mean? I'm a survivor.
Common has always had a spot in hip-hop history, but now, at 53, he's opening up about some dark secrets most people never knew.
A black man, we don't talk about those issues in ways that we could. So I felt I wanted to create a space for people who have experienced that to be able to share that. That's part of the healing.
From everything that swirled the beef between him and Ice Cube back then, to the insane claims laid against him by Jaguar Wright.
Let me say this, man, God bless Jaguar. I really don't have any negative thoughts towards her. I was for surely disappointed and hurt when she said what she said about me.
And even how he suffered from a family friend. Just how dark could these secrets really be? Let's dive in. Lonnie Rashid Lynn, born on the south side of Chicago, seemed built for greatness from the start. His mom, Dr. Mahalia Ann Hines, was a teacher, and his dad, Lonnie Lynn, used to hoop in the ABA before later working as a youth counselor. So really, he grew up on jump shots and deep conversations. In high school, young Rashid formed his first rap trio, CDR, and they even got to open for NWA.
The group that I was in, CDR, we opened up for Eazy-E and NWA, Too Short, and Big Daddy Kane. So for us, that was like, we thought we had made.
But that run ended when he left for Florida, A&M, to study business. That lasted about 2 years before he decided school wasn't it, and went all in on music. At first, he called himself Common Sense, because, well, it fit. But when a rock band with the same name got tangled in some legal-ish, he cut it down to just Common. And honestly, the name might sound modest, but his career was far from that. By the early 2000s hip-hop renaissance, he was one of the leaders, dropping gems like a poet with a mic. Back in '94, he released Resurrection, and the standout track was I Used to Love Her, a love letter and low-key critique of hip-hop itself. In the song, he basically said, I miss the old hip-hop. Using the metaphor of a woman he once loved, he told a story that revealed the woman was hip-hop itself.
Good man, good husband.
The track hit hard, especially with East Coast rap fans who hadn't been too impressed with his first album, Can I Borrow a Dollar? But not everybody vibed with it. The song painted hip-hop's shift from its pure roots to a more commercial, gangsta-driven style. That didn't sit right with Ice Cube, who felt it was a shot at the West Coast takeover of the game in the 90s.
Girl that he was in love with, she's supposed to be hip-hop, and he's so in love with her, but when she go out here, up.
Sure.
And we so, at least I did. I mean, everybody did, but, I was the first one with the pen, so that's how that started.
Cube and his crew took it as a diss, though Common later explained he wasn't trying to disrespect anyone. He was just giving his take on how the culture was evolving. In his 2011 memoir, One Day It'll All Make Sense, he wrote, to me, it was just descriptive. I was talking about hip-hop's journey and how the West was running it by the 90s. But I guess Cube heard it another way. Things heated up when Common heard Cube had fired back. I am in the car with my homie Rasan and King T from the West, and somebody said, yo, Cube dissed you on this song. So we playing this song and I'm like, damn, this ninja dissing me. King T was like, nah, he ain't dissing you. He ain't dissing you.
My homie Rasan and King T. King T from the West Coast. And somebody said, yo, Cube dissed you on this song. So we playing the song, and I'm listening. I'm like, damn.
Like, yo, I grew up listening to Cube. I was happy that he knew who I was, like that he even recognized me. But I was hurt that he had dissed me a little, But overall, I was just like, all right, that's cool. Kind of laughed it off.
That verse came from Ice Cube's feature on Mac 10's West Side Slaughterhouse, also with WC. It was a hard-hitting track off Mac 10's debut under Priority Records. Funny enough, it dropped as a single on September 28, 1995, almost exactly a year after I Used to Love Her. But it had already been buzzing since summer as an unofficial West Side Connection anthem. And it wasn't just aimed at Common, it was a statement. Cube used a few sharp lines to rewrite hip-hop's origin story, putting the culture's birth in California and erasing its Bronx roots on Sedgwick Avenue. With those bars, Cube wasn't just aiming at Common. He was throwing gas on the already blazing East Coast verses, West Coast feud that had been heating up in the 90s. Rappers like Tim Dog, NWA, Thaw Dog Pound, Tupac, and Biggie were all in the mix. While some artists threw subtle jabs, Cube came out swinging, making it obvious whose side he was on. For Common, the whole thing felt like a ticking time bomb. He was stuck in the crossfire, both figuratively and literally. By the time he dropped his reply, Cube was already catching heat from his own fans. Even after releasing 4 classic albums back-to-back, America's Most Wanted, Death Certificate, The and Lethal Injection.
What? For the day, one of my homies wanna swap, I'm still rolling with the lips.
The criticism was stacking up. Some fans didn't like how Cube lifted the famous beat from Grandmaster Flash and Mel's The Message for his Check Yourself remix. And even though Puff pulled a similar move years later without much backlash, people also accused Cube of biting Cypress Hill's Throw Your Set in the Air for his song Friday. Then there was Cube's image problem. Fans thought he was caught between 2 clashing roles, the wild gangster rapper with no filter and the Nation of Islam member pushing discipline and awareness. To make things messier, Cube, who once worked with East Coast legends like Public Enemy, The Bomb Squad, and Das EFX, suddenly flipped and went full-on West Coast soldier with West Side Connection, firing shots at the East. All that left fans annoyed, and when Common finally responded, the timing felt spot on with the mood of hip-hop shifting. At first, Common was shocked Cube even knew who he was, let alone dissed him. I was a huge fan of Cube, so my first reaction was like, "Yo, Cube knows me," Common said. But once the surprise wore off, he got heated. I just kind of smiled like, "Okay, I see what's up." Honestly, I wouldn't have responded if Cube and his crew hadn't kept talking. But then West Side Connection went on BET's Rap City dissing me, and that brought the Chicago out. That's when I knew I had to clap back.
First reaction was like, damn, Ice Cube know who I am? And then I was like,
You was mad.
I was mad. I got mad. I was mad for sure.
That's when Common dropped his own diss, The B in You.
With an attitude named Cube, step to the con with.
At the time, he was working with Chicago producers No ID and Doug Infinite, who shaped his early sound. Doug later revealed that No ID wasn't even cool with making a diss record at first. I don't think No ID wanted to do the beat. For one, he was working on his album, but I don't think he wanted to be pulled into the beef. He wanted to be more the producer that worked with everybody. So Com went to get Pete Rock to do it, Doug explained. Since No ID wasn't feeling it, Common reached out to Pete Rock for assistance. Pete was more than willing to step in.
A lot of producers didn't want to produce that because, you know, they was like, man,
Yeah.
we ain't going against Cube, like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, you wildin', bro.
But you tripping. They like, you
triple
tripping, bro.
platinum.
You know. But Pete Rock was like, yo, I'm with it.
I remember getting a phone call from Common saying how upset he was about getting disrespected by Ice Cube. I told him, if you need my help, I'm here. So he came to New York and we hung out at a friend's house. I actually made the beat for The B in You right there at that house, using some records I had given him earlier. I didn't think he'd even like it. I figured I'd need to go back home to my full collection, but he loved it, and we worked on it together right then and there.
But I hooked up with Pete. Pete, tell him like when we connected that day. You said I was mad when you took me to the
Wait, I didn't even make the beat at my house.
He comes to see you in the studio. Is this Green Street Studio?
No, he came to the hood. And then we went to my man's house where he had a stack of records. You know, I'm going through the records and I'm like, I see this record, start playing it, and I heard this loop. And I was like,
Once the track was wrapped up, it got its first play on DJ Stretch Armstrong and Bobito Garcia's legendary WKCR radio show in 1996. But the version that aired wasn't the polished single. It was a rough demo. The first verse stayed the same, but the demo actually had 2 extra verses that never made it to the final release. Word started spreading that one of those verses was aimed at Common's label mate, Fat Joe, who had dropped She Is Real back in 1993.
One day I went to visit my aunt and stuck up my cuz.
The line went, "If it's really real, Joe, let that she show for self. No need parading guns, murders, or your wealth." Fans thought Common scrapped it to avoid beef with Fat Joe since they were both signed to Relativity Records. But Doug Infinite shut that rumor down pretty quickly, claiming that the line, in fact, didn't have anything to do with Fat Joe. It was just simply a Chicago lingo that meant dude or bro. When the B&U officially dropped, it was a big moment. It came out as a promo single with The Real Weight by No ID and Doug Infinite on the B-side, then later landed on the Relativity Records compilation Urban. By the time it hit the streets, people knew Common had delivered one of the hardest diss tracks ever. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a sharp surgical takedown loaded with clever wordplay and brutal critiques. It voiced exactly what a lot of fans were already saying about Ice Cube's contradictions. Common didn't hold back, spitting lines like, "Went from gangsta to Islam to the D of Das EFX," calling Cube out for catering to the East Coast before flipping on them later. Then he cut deeper with, "Hypocrite, I'm filling out your death certificate," slinging bean pies and St. Ides in the same sentence, pointing out Cube's clash between pushing Nation of Islam values while still repping street life.
"Hypocrite, I'm filling out your death certificate, slinging bean pies and St. Ides in the same."
And to close it out, Common hit him with the ultimate mic drop, using Cube's own words against him. In the immortal words of one, a B is a B.
Before I hit the switch from the immortal words of one, a bitch is a...
Chicago rapper D. Smart later summed it up. When Common responded, his rap was so dope, he went in on Cube. He offed Cube, and Cube was one of the dopest at the time. He was the man, and Common ate him up. He spanked him. For Cube, this was new ground. He'd built his name as one of the coldest diss rappers alive. His No Vaseline takedown of NWA was already legendary, and nobody wanted smoke with him.
I ain't gonna lie, and this is me being 100%.
Yeah.
If Ice Cube might have dissed me, I might have let it ride. I'm like, man, let me see. You got me. I'll fight you. I don't mind. I don't want to bar with Ice.
As Doug Infinite put it, if you're going at Cube lyrically, you gotta bring your best, or he's gonna body you. And I think Common felt that, being the lyricist he is. Cube later admitted he had a response track ready to go, but things shifted before it could blow up. With Tupac's death in 1996 and Biggie's in 1997, hip-hop was in a dark place. The line between rap beefs and real violence was fading, and tension was sky high. Seeing this, Minister Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam stepped in to cool things down before it could spiral out of control.
The Farrakhan at the time brought us all together.
Bring it together.
Man,
is that because how serious it was getting, though?
At the crib.
That was
Farrakhan house.
Yeah, Farrakhan.
Because I feel like he doesn't get involved unless something serious is about to go down.
He brought us together, literally.
On April 3rd, 1997, just a few weeks after Biggie was killed, Minister Louis Farrakhan put together a peace summit at the Nation of Islam's headquarters in Chicago. It wasn't just another meeting. This was a serious moment in hip-hop history, and the lineup of names in that building showed just how big it really was. You had legends like Snoop Dogg, Thaw Dog Pound, Bone Thugs and Harmony, Nate Dogg, Too Short, Fat Joe, Mac 10, WC, Channel Live, Chuck D, and right there in the mix were Common and Ice Cube. Two men who had been throwing shots at each other not too long before.
And to each of you, the leaders of the hip-hop culture and generation, it is indeed a great honor.
According to D.A. Smart, who worked security with the Fruit of Islam that day, the energy in the room was tense from the very beginning. Nobody came in there playing around. The beefs, the tension, and the fear that things could go beyond music were real. People were worried that rap battles and diss tracks could spill into the streets and turn into something much worse. Both Common's crew and Cube's crew were carrying that weight, but at the same time, there was also a sense that something different could happen in that space. What made it possible for them to even sit in the same room was the fact that both men had solid relationships with Minister Farrakhan. He was the middle ground, the one person they both respected enough to come together for. That connection gave them a bridge to stand on, and it turned a night filled with tension into the start of something bigger than just music beef. It became about survival, peace, and the future of hip-hop itself.
Eventually, as Cube said, we just got cool. Minister Farrakhan squashed the beef. This is right after Biggie and Pac had died. God bless those brothers' souls. We all had this meeting.
By the time the meeting wrapped, the energy had shifted. Farrakhan's words hit hard, and people started apologizing to each other. One of the most unforgettable moments came when Ice Cube walked over to Common and gave him a hug. Bay Area historian Davey D., who was there, called it a defining moment. The two had been going at it on wax, but in that room, they understood the weight their words carried. It was bigger than rap. The Common versus Cube beef ended right there, and it never sparked back up. Still, even though the two men made peace, the same couldn't be said for everyone around them. Old grudges lingered, and that became clear about a year later during a Sprite commercial shoot with Common, Mac 10, Fat Joe, Goody Mob, and CeeLo Green. The concept was simple, like a Voltron theme with each rapper repping a different region.
We're doing this commercial, a Sprite commercial. It's like a Voltron commercial where they taking artists from each region. Like Fat Joe was representing the East, Goody Mob was representing the South.
From the South, dirty gravel, Sprite, obey your third. With the mouth, don't say hip hop first.
But the set quickly got tense. One of my guys still wasn't over the Cube situation, Common admitted. He had bad blood from back then. When this crew member locked eyes with Mac 10, the tension was obvious. Mac, being Mac, stepped right up to confront him.
We go to the commercial, and he started basically staring down Mac 10, just giving him, grilling him. And then he said, Mac 10 was like, man, what you looking at, homie?
Doug Infinite later confirmed how it went down. What started as a few heated words escalated fast. Mac's bodyguard tried to cool it off, but Common's guy only made it worse, mocking Mac as Whack 10. That pushed things to the edge. Mac, clearly fed up, told one of his people to hit the car and grab a weapon. That could have gone left in a serious way, but Fat Joe stepped up and calmed everyone down before it turned ugly. Even so, Common's crew member got kicked off the set. Furious, he stormed outside and reportedly damaged Mac's car.
Just like Common said, the issue was with his homeboy. It wasn't even about the diss record.
Aha.
The issue came with his homeboy stepped out and.
Not long after, word came back that Mac 10's crew was planning payback. Possibly not just for Common's guy, but for Common himself. Once again, Fat Joe used his pull to de-escalate. But this time, the warning still landed. Common's friend got roughed up as a message. Years later, all that drama became water under the bridge for Common and Ice Cube. The two moved past their history and even ended up collaborating. While that moment was a turning point for both of them, we also can't ignore some of the wild situations Common has found himself in. But before we get to that, in 2019, he made a shocking confession in his memoir, Let Love Have the Last Word. According to People, Common revealed in the book that he was as a child. The assault, he said, was by someone connected to his godbrother and happened when he was 9 or 10 years old. I pushed him away. I don't remember saying much except, no, no, no. I felt a deep and sudden shame for what happened. Common wrote that he buried the memory until a few years ago while workshopping a scene with Laura Dern for the tale. I just pushed the whole thing out of my head, he reportedly wrote. Maybe it's a matter of survival. Even now, 2 years after that flash of memories. As I'm writing, I'm still working through it with myself and my therapist.
I'm a black man. We don't talk about those issues in ways that we could. So I felt I wanted to create a space for people who have experienced that to be able to share that. That's part of the healing.
Then came the wild stuff. In 2020, Philly singer Jaguar Wright accused Common of misconduct. The next thing I know, I wake up, it's morning. I feel something poking in my face, she said on Instagram Live. I opened my mouth and this ninja tried to stick his D in my mouth while I'm asleep. Lonnie effing Lynn, Rashid, Common, whatever you call yourself. That's why I stopped effing with him. Because if you're gonna try to do that while I'm asleep, there's nothing you won't do.
Next thing I know, we go to bed. He like, oh, come on, Jack. No, 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 I'm tired. I was on the stage all night. I want to lay down. I'm going to lay down in the bed. I lay down with my clothes on. You know what I mean? I'm a rape survivor.
Not long after, Common denied the accusations in an interview on Philadelphia's Rise and Grind morning show. He said he was disappointed and hurt by her claims. God bless Jaguar. I really don't have any negative thoughts towards her, he said. I was for surely disappointed and hurt when she said that about me because it wasn't true. I know people who've experienced and that's not something you say if it's not true.
Let me say this, man, God bless Jaguar. I really don't have any negative thoughts towards her. I was for surely disappointed and hurt when she said what she said about me.
In 2023, the rapper opened up about his own struggles with alcoholism growing up. He explained, hip-hop is reflective of our communities, and one of the things we've been dealing with, and I dealt with it too, is alcoholism. I understood at an early age that I wasn't going to be able to drink away the pain, Common says. It wasn't like the substance healed the issue overall. I still had to deal with it the next day. His way of handling it? He stays away from drinking whenever he's feeling low because he knows it won't get him closer to his personal or career goals. When you've really got something you're chasing, you stop and think about it, and the closer you get to that goal, the easier it is to stay disciplined. During that same stretch, he also talked about becoming more health conscious. He said KRS-One's song, My Philosophy, influenced him to take his health seriously. Growing up in Chicago, I just ate whatever I wanted and didn't think about cutting foods out of my diet. So to hear someone I looked up to say, a vegetarian, no goat or ham or chicken or turkey or hamburger, because to me that's self-murder, was huge for me.
And I'll jump up to a tap one. KRS-One is just the guy to lead a crew. Right up to your feet.
Lately, Common has also been pretty open about his mental health and the different ways he takes care of himself. Back in August 2020, he even started his own YouTube channel called Calm and Well, where he shares parts of his self-care and wellness journey with his fans. For him, it's about keeping balance in all areas of life, spiritually, physically, and emotionally. Because once he's grounded in those spaces, it becomes easier to deal with personal struggles. In his words, it's really about trying out little things that might work for you, maybe for a few weeks, then switching it up if you need to. The whole idea is to find practices that bring peace and actually stick with you, even when times get rough.
Being able to get in tune with the therapist and get in tune with, spiritual leaders that mean something to me.
Common admits that he still has his low moments, just like anybody else, but he leans on simple solutions to pull himself back up. Sometimes it's as easy as watching a funny movie, laughing, and letting his mind rest. Other times he gets more intentional with it by watching a meaningful film, spending time in meditation, praying, or putting his thoughts down on paper. Writing for him isn't just an artistic thing. It's a way to unload stress, anger, and even sadness. In his own words, creating anything, whether it's music, journaling, or even just writing out feelings, can be one of the most powerful tools to keep your mental health in check.